with what he's done as a passer now, you've talked about it already, the mechanical progression and where he's grown as a thrower of the football, both mechanically and mentally as well. He's always been a dual threat guy, but I think he's even more of that now. He's still, despite the fact that he's put on more weight and he's eating popcorn at press conferences and stuff, he still has that dynamic ability. He's got the burst, he's got the long speed, he's got the short area quickness, he's got the agility, he's got the elusiveness that could, the proverbial make a man miss in the phone booth type of agility there. But he's got the arm, he's got a cannon. He's still got some issues with ball placement from time to time and getting through some progressions. He'll get lazy with his footwork and off platform from time to time, but he's really progressed as a thrower of the football. And with what we expect to see from the Bills defense from a health standpoint, going into this game, Dane Jackson may play, but there's a very realistic scenario where Kyer Elam is your corner one, and your corner two is either Jamarcus Ingram from UB or newly signed Xavier Rhodes. And then your safety grouping, does Jordan Poyer play, or are you rolling out Damar Hamlin and Jaquan Johnson, who combined have 3 starts in the NFL at this point, including the start for each of them last week against the Miami Dolphins? So what you're able to do in coverage, pass rush, the front, the back end,
fitting the run from your safeties.
Yes, which is such a hard piece, fitting the run from depth. Everything you do on the back end is tied to what you do on the front end. The Buffalo Bills love to use light boxes. That is their forte. It has been under Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott for the most of their stead here. They come into the year using light boxes on 49% of defensive snaps. That's the 7th most in the league. They want to keep numbers in coverage. They only want to rush forward. They want to fit the run with those light boxes. If they can't, they have to start bring more numbers forward, right? If Lamar is the threat as the runner, whether it's Lamar in scrambling, whether it's Lamar on design runs, or J.K. Dobbins, whoever on design runs, if you have to bring more numbers forward, that leaves you less numbers in coverage. Simple math, nothing revelatory, nothing crazy. But then you've got those fewer numbers in coverage, but this time it's not Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and Tre'Davious White. This time it very easily could be Damar Hamlin and Jaquan Johnson and Kyer Elam and Xavier Rhodes or Jamarcus Ingram going up against Rashad Bateman, who I think is a legitimate high end right now, like where he is.
It's hard not to see a little Stephon Diggs in the way Rashad Bateman moves.
His release package is beautiful. His physicality, he's got run after catch ability. He can high point the football. He can make contested catches. He's big. He's physical. He's fast. He is shaping up into be a wide receiver 1 type player, which is fine, but even better because you're technically your wide receiver 1 or your option 1 is Mark Andrews, who's a unicorn at tight end. If Lamar starts to get things working one way or the other, again, you have to allocate resources somehow, some way. So if Lamar's functioning as a passer, cool. You have to play those numbers in coverage, which means there's less numbers up front to stop what the Ravens really want to do, which is pound the rock and use their gap scheme. And it's so much worse against gap scheme runs with light boxes and the type of defenses we're seeing, because a lot of the defenses now are built to stop zone runs. You're trying to just gum up the works a little bit, slow things down, and allow your second and third level defenders to come up and make plays. But the
Trying
Ravens,
to use the sideline, spread things out,
yes,
keep it lateral.
Exactly. Make them go horizontal, rally and tackle. That doesn't happen with gap runs because they're getting runs right at you. You're getting downhill. The offense is getting upfield in a hurry. And that works even better against light boxes. If you're sitting there playing with 6 in the box, you've already got 5 offensive linemen, that's 6 potential gaps. You add whether it's Ricard as the fullback or Andrews as the tight end, or you're running 21 or 22 or all these scenarios. It's very easy to get out-gapped against the Baltimore Ravens, even when you're going with 7 or 8 man boxes, let alone if you're going with light boxes. So what do the Bills have to play from their box numbers? How does it relate to coverage? It all ties into Lamar. How many resources do they have to allocate towards stopping his arm or his legs? This offense for Baltimore goes as Lamar Jackson goes, nothing crazy. How do you stop him? How do you function into that? How much man coverage can you play on the back end? Are you willing to risk your second and third level defenders having their backs turned or being deep down the field and risking Lamar Jackson breaking contain against your rushers, and all of a sudden he's broken, he's out of the pocket, and he's got 10, 15 yards of space, and arguably the most dangerous man with the ball in his hands is in the wide open field against your defense? How do they balance and layer their coverages, layer their schemes against the Ravens run game, the play action game, and against Lamar in general? because again, there's only so many resources you can allocate. And given how the Bills are kind of a walking wounded group on the interior of their defensive line and on the back end in the secondary, I think it's easy for them to kind of get outgamed or out chess matched given the matchup they have against the Baltimore Ravens, especially if there's weather involved, and then that skews things even further.
Very well said. And my expectation for what we're going to see from the Bills defensively, and I think the recipe for them to go win in Baltimore is putting yourself in the position to simply execute. And to me, that means you are going to run your 4-man rushes that you are going to continue running. You are going to stick someone on the roof. You are going to load the box. You are going to dedicate bodies to stopping the run. Mm-hmm. And you are going to dare Lamar Jackson, hopefully in a rainy game, to throw it over your head.
Yeah.
And if you do the opposite of that and want to play split safety looks and have light boxes, if you're trotting out inexperienced safeties and inexperienced cornerbacks, you're setting yourself up for failure. Keep it simple, stud, kiss approach. You want Kyer Elam playing on that vertical plane, cover 3, stick one of those safeties on the roof, have the other corner, Matt Milano, Trey Edmonds, big, long, mobile guys that can carry their hook to curl up the seam, can do some damage. So I'd anticipate that to be the Bills' general philosophy. Keep it simple, stud. We're going to go in a rain game. We're going to play a lot of cover 3 looks, a lot of middle of the field close looks, try and funnel the ball to the outside, to the seams a little bit, and ask the Ravens to, hey, we want you to get, then what is the counter to that? You want the Ravens to really spread the football field out formation-wise. They're not going to want to run tight, condensed splits and formations against that kind of look. So I anticipate seeing a lot of like YY on one half and then twins on the other. So the Ravens have a power element. If they want to run the ball, they'll probably have a run play and a pass play in a lot of times. And then have a twins look on the other side. That's something I would expect to see 6, 7, 8 times in this game, having Rashad Bateman all the way lined up towards the boundary on the numbers, outside the numbers, have someone in the slot, Devin Duvernay, a DeMarcus Robinson, maybe interchanging a little bit, having that power, having that speed element. And for the Bills, they just need to go execute. If they want to win this game, keep it in front of you. Don't allow any of these runs to start wearing you down, because as soon as they do, that's how you die. And if I have to pick a way to make the Ravens beat me or any team beat me, it's always going to be through the air. Maybe that's not the case so much for a Bills team, but most of the time, if you want to die through the air. You don't want to die against a dangerous rushing attack that has historically defied what running the football in the modern NFL is because of who they have behind center. So I would think we see some 7-man boxes a lot of the time, some 8-man boxes even, and trying to go and say, hey, inclement weather, throw it over our heads and we'll win that game. That is, I mentioned that 49ers game. I mentioned the approach that at the time Robert Saleh had, and I think that is the approach that worked really well, kept the Ravens pretty at bay most of the time. Ravens defense played well too, so I think that's what we see out of this Bills team. And if they can simply go execute in those kind of middle of the field closed looks perhaps, then I think they could walk out of Baltimore, depending on what happens on the other side of the ball, a 3-1 football team.
I expect to see a similar approach from the Bills defense, running more single high and bringing more of a safety presence into the box, which at this point in the year would be a bit of a, granted it's matchup specific in what they do, but that would be a shift in what this Bills defense has been. So on the year, 2 high shells pre-snap, 77% of the time, fourth most in the league. Post-snap, middle of the field, open looks, so those split safety looks, 64% middle of the field.
That's been the story under McDermott.
Yeah, and that they're really rolling with that 2 high safety look, and that's 64% for middle of the field open coverage, those split safety looks post-snap. That's the most in the NFL. So what they've been, at first, they were more balanced last year, like 43 and 44% in terms of middle of field close versus middle of field open. It started in week 1 against the Rams, but a lot of it was like, okay, with what the Rams do, you want to stay in 2 high pre and post because you want to be able to spin down and be able to work off that leverage of all the Rams motion and their sail concepts and everything that they try to do as an offense. But then it continued even into the Tennessee game against the team that you would think, well, you don't want to go 2 high against Tennessee. And they went with more heavier boxes and a bit more single high looks. But who they've been this year?
Heavy in that sense.
Yeah, they've been a 2 high team pre and post snap at this point. But again, to your point,
and then you play the Dolphins, and you're not running middle of the field close.
Stupid Dolphins. Yeah, you are not against that offense. And yeah, I think they go more single high in this game. You have to make if Lamar's allowed.
If Poyer's in there, I think that can
Yes.
change things.
Yes, I think that throws a wrench into our plans at this point, but I'm not sure whether or not he plays at this point. Again, still limited in practice. We'll see. And I think that the Bills are very, with their injury approach, not just this year traditionally under McDermott, they're very cautious. They are
especially
very,
considering Hyde in Poyer's case as well.
yes. So you want to make sure with the championship aspirations this team has, I could very well see them being like, listen, sit. I don't care if we lose this game. I want you to be healthy for November and December, potentially so on and so forth. But yeah, you can't let Lamar, if Lamar gets cooking with his legs and his arm, you're done. If you allow him to get cooking with his legs, you're done. If you allow this Ravens run game to get into a rhythm, you're done. And especially for a team like the Bills that has Josh Allen, that's even more worse for you, which is why the Ravens have been such a potential kryptonite team for the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, because if they're moving the ball with the run game, not only are they moving the ball and getting yards and potential points, you're keeping the opponent in Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen off that field. The last thing you want to see if you're the Bills is the Ravens death by 1,000 cuts running game, just constantly churning out 4 to 7 yards a clip. And then the explosives that come with like the 10+ yard runs, constantly churning yards out, constantly keeping the ball away from Josh Allen. That's a recipe for failure. And then you get pulled into the play action game is more, then you're losing on both sides of the sword. It's
very well said. And what Leslie Frazier did, I guess, to summarize it all in that last 2020 matchup, and there was inclement weather, was he had Poyer and Hyde in split safety looks, but they were 8 yards off the ball.
Yep, they weren't
7 yards off the ball. They were split, but they were still able to go fit pretty quickly. Now they have someone in Rashad Bateman that can win in isolated situations where they did not have that previously. That's why they drafted Rashad Bateman. So if that is the approach, if Frazier, who I have never really known to not think of a new wrinkle and is one of the brightest defensive minds in the NFL, if he does decide to take a similar approach as he did in 2020, I think this game comes down to, hey, can Rashad Bateman go beat a Kyer Elam or Xavier Rhodes on the outside, go convert some big plays, go have one long run after the catch like he did against the Jets in week 1, like he did in the Patriots in week 3, and flip the field or go score a long touchdown. I think that's a very interesting aspect to this entire chess match. So I guess we'll ultimately see how it unfolds, my friend.
I also love that piece. Just one more thing to touch on before we get you out of here. One of my other big takeaways from watching Ravens versus Patriots, and you won't get it from the box score, you got to watch the game film. Rashad Bateman was open a lot. He was just getting clean releases. There's so many clips, and it's not just like it's bad Lamar. Like he's hitting Duvernay, or he's hitting Demarcus Robinson, or he's hitting Andrews.
Like one of them, there's one where Mark Andrews is in the slot, pressed up, one-on-one. You can tell that it's man coverage, and he runs Y cross, and he's wide open, and it's like a 25-yard play. But Rashad Bateman has done a split release and swiped the hands away and then accelerated and has 2-3 yards on a corner on the other side.
Ravens are going from right to left on your screen on that one. It's such a clean release package. It's beautiful. There's several reps like that where you see the completion in the middle of the field, and if you look towards the bottom or top of the screen, Bateman is 4 yards past his corner with his hand up in the air looking for it. If you look at the box score, you're seeing like Bateman's not doing anything. You watch the tape, he's winning a lot in a variety of ways. And then you saw, maybe some frustration, but in a good way. He makes that catch towards the end in the fourth quarter on the stop route, breaks a tackle, gets upfield, and you just see the emotion and the energy. And I just felt like he was like, I could have been doing this all game. Like I've been open so much. He is a monster. And I love that point. I like a lot of people or a lot of fans look to be like, well, the Bills can just do what they did against the Ravens in the playoffs 2 years ago. They didn't have a threat on the outside like they do now with Rashad Bateman, combined with Lamar being a better passer than he was at that point. Different offense, same identity from where they're trying to be and where they're trying to go, but you have those added layers. It becomes much more complicated to defend with how Lamar has grown, and then having a legitimate wide receiver option on the outside who the numbers might not show it, but he can beat you in a hurry in a variety of ways with his skill set.